Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Cats are back there too. I'm sure they'll make an appearance at some point.
They're around here somewhere.
52 days until Raiders kickoff.
Telling you guys, I keep telling you next week's going to be 45, and that's like a month and a half. That's nothing.
52 is like a good linebacker number too. It's a good
Look,
solid
I'll tell you something right now. We're heading right towards like most days I've gone without jerking off.
Liar.
Like we're getting close.
You hear your cat just say bullshit? That was cat for bullshit.
No, he's like, I know, because I was being really grumpy. We're heading there. We're getting there.
He's like, that's what he jerks off. That's what he wipes off with. Me, my soft fur.
The softest.
I was wondering why you named him CR for Cumrag. Well, we just lost all our listeners. So that would be new. And it's also next week. So this is the last show where there's any like actual Raider movement on a field to talk about because training camp begins next week. Yeah, Hall of Fame game and then training camp. Like last show before, it's like, hey, did you see what Raiders players did on a field this week? Luckily,
yeah, it's getting exciting, man. And the thing is, like, once that starts, like the preseason starts, there is only 1 week without football until the week before the Super Bowl. That is the last preseason week. There's that dead week, and then it's over. We're going. So we have 2 weeks. Once next weekend, the Hall of Fame game, we have only 2 weekends without professional football.
Did you see Joe Burrow's like scheduling idea?
No, what did he say?
You go 18 weeks, 2 bye weeks. So the Super Bowl lands on President's Day weekend, so everyone gets the Monday off.
That's
so you have an official hangover. That's what the forefathers would have wanted for us. Like, like John Adams and Benjamin Franklin were like housing them. You know what I mean? Like they definitely appreciated
7 beers ago.
Like they would have really appreciated like a good hangover day after like a national holiday. I'm not one to give Joe Burrow credit, but that's pretty. I guarantee he didn't think of it, but I'm glad he publicized it. And the NFL's drooling over it. Oh, another game, longer season. We get to take over another weekend. It's only a matter of time.
I think they're gonna. I mean, I've been on Joe Burrow from like the beginning, even before, like even when he got hurt before he went to the Super Bowl. No. Yeah. I just his attitude and everything. I thought he was legit. That's a pretty good idea
to take the Bengals to the Super Bowl.
I mean, you said it yourself, man. Like your buddy who was a Bengals fan was saying, "Oh, he's a culture changer." And we're like, "Wait a second, bro. That's some big words," and he ended up being that. So, good on him.
We love Antonio Pierce around here, and what he's done with this locker room is fantastic. But the Raiders had a good locker room before Josh McDaniels came, and as bad as he was, he didn't destroy it. Like the foundation was still there. Antonio Pierce just raised it to the surface, right? It was already bubbling, right? Like Max Crosby didn't all of a sudden become, okay with the bad locker room. And add AP to that mixture, great locker room, right? Joe Burrow turned the Bengals. A quarterback was able to throw out bad ownership, bad coaching, bad front office, bad culture. That's pretty insane. Like, it's not just good play that does that. Like,
I mean, when your best player rolls in there and just tells everybody, yeah, I'm the best player here, and then goes out and proves it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's like super chill with everybody.
Having 3 number 1 wide receivers that year also helped. I remember we had everybody hurt and all we had was Hunter. We're like, oh, just give me one of those. Can we just get one? Just one of your number 1 receivers.
Speaking of Hunter, man, when I watch that receiver show and I see him in the background, I don't think there's a doubt in my mind why he's not signed to a team yet.
Hairline.
He looks like a middle school kid.
It's the hairline. Yeah, he looks like a middle school kid with a 52-year-old's hairline.
From the middle of his forehead down, he looks like a middle schooler, and then from the middle of his forehead up, he looks like he's 55-year-old insurance salesman.
You don't want people to see him getting off the bus.
You don't want to see him without his shirt on. Like if
you don't want to see him in shorts.
Yeah, if I'm his agent, I'm like, look, man, you're a never nude from now on.
When you're the only guy out of your like receiving core and quarterback that can fit in an Uber X, that's a bad sign. What was it?
Dude,
It was Davante Carr. Who was the other guy?
fucking Hollins, dude. He's huge, the biggest one.
He's 6'4". Oh,
Yeah,
he's
he's
like
like 6'4". Yeah, he's huge.
And then Hunter gets in the front seat. Like
Yeah, he's just in the front. Everyone else in the back is like, dude, what?
He's like, hey, I paid the $19 for this Uber X, so I get it. Like, didn't you?
I mean, to be fair, it's before he signed his contract.
No, it was right after. It was right. It was right
he hadn't
after.
Played the game. He hadn't played a game yet,
which is why it was so funny. It's like you just signed this like $20 million guaranteed contract. You're like, you know what? I'm going to save the extras $394. I'm going to get this the Sonata.
He got an Uber pool. We got one more stop, guys.
They had to talk about getting a bus ticket. So because this is the last show before like training camp and like actual footballish conversation, cleats to turf conversation, we got a lot to talk about one player. If you love talking Davante Adams, this is the show.
This is your show.
This is your show. So the Netflix receiver show that you're talking about. I'm I think 4 episodes in, and we've gotten to the but I've seen all the Davante Adams clips, right? They've been played over and over again. Davante's now doing like basically like the car wash media wise, talking to everybody. We'll get to every important thing he said over the course of last week. It's all kind of piecing together a lot of bits of information. Show's been pretty good. I'm a little underwhelmed, but it's been it's awesome that Davante was there. We got to see some insight into what was going on. But the genesis for all this discussion is basically 2 scenes. Took some screenshots for you during I think this is the Detroit game.
Yep, Detroit.
He goes, I gotta get the fuck out of here before I lose my fucking life. So when it's shots of him getting like just blasted, there was his AC joint that was in that game. I've never been hit this many fucking times in my career. Flipping out. And then there's you threw the helmet on the ground, Here's the bad miss from Jimmy G. Looking for Adams, he missed him. Was it Jimmy G or was it
No, it was Jimmy G.
It wasn't Aidan by this point. It was Jimmy G, right?
It was Jimmy G still.
Talks about the overthrow. This is fucking pathetic, bro. Tired of this fucking bullshit. This was when he threw his helmet between these two. Right here. See,
yeah,
helmet.
I think he said just throw the fucking ball.
Wearing a helmet? Not wearing a helmet. He didn't set it down gently. Wearing a helmet? Not wearing a helmet. And so we remember we all saw that clip was shown over and over again. We're like, oh, I wonder what he said. This is what he said.
I mean, I think anyone who can who was a novice lip reader, I think we both saw and we both, that's what he said.
I saw the F-bombs.
They showed the freaking his face when he was saying it, and then over and over and over. So you know exactly what he said last year.
So he's obviously super pissed right there, and he's 31 years old, still in his prime, but on the back end of his right. Like people say, this is the problem. I think when people say oh, this player, this fighter, this whoever is declining. Like it's not with fighters. Sometimes it's like this, right? Football players, sometimes it's like this, but with receivers, it's normally a steady decline. You normally here's your peak, right? 28, 29, and then you're still in your peak. You're just going the other way, right? You're starting to go.
It's
right.
It's a steeper fall than it is a climb. But yeah,
but it's not like a boxer.
Unless it's injury, it's not. You don't fall off.
Yeah, you just you slow down a little bit, but you're also smarter, and that kind of makes up for a little bit of the physical decline, And so when we say all right, at 31 is Davante declining? It's maybe, but does that mean he's just going to be again, 90% of Davante Adams is still a top 5 receiver in the league, and probably a guy that's still really, really good for a couple of seasons and effective for another 5. Right? Davante's a guy that. We've always talked about. He's not a guy that relies specifically on his speed or physicality. He's a release guy, a route guy, a savvy guy, an outthinker, and that's only going to get better with time. But because it seems like he's, certainly there's more years behind him than in front of him in this league. And the Raiders, certainly on paper, there's no argument outside looking in, don't look like anything. we're a little bit more optimistic because we know what's going on. But I understand national media looking at the Raiders and saying, "Oh, Minshew or O'Connell, you guys ain't doing anything." And last year when they were upset about it, there was all the trade talks about Davante. This year they fired up again. Boomer Esiason said on WFAN, he said a trade will happen in August or September. Essentially reported it. Dan Orlovsky said, a trade is going to be done. It's Orlovsky, so he's not reporting. It's just kind of like he's reading the tea leaves and that's his opinion type of thing. But the Davante Adams out of Las Vegas conversation is at its fever pitch right now, Soto, just because some footage from the middle of last season got released in a Netflix documentary.
Well, I mean, I think it's just connecting dots, like more like linking chain together. So look, we saw so let's start from the beginning. He comes in, Derek Carr throws him a lot of touchdowns, but the team doesn't win enough. The team moves on from Carr. The reason why he went to the Raiders, which is he said that himself. Okay, so that's one big thing. McDaniels is just losing the locker room steadily. The guy he brings in isn't worth 2 shakes of my dick, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. The hits, the losses, the lack of targets, the lack of production, all that stuff is growing, right? I don't see. Okay, you have a new offensive coordinator coming in. You have 2 quarterbacks who most everybody in the league view as average at best, at very best, average to slightly below average quarterbacks. If you take a look at the QBR last year, they were like in the high 20s. So you have that. I think what these guys are looking at is if these quarterbacks perform the way that we think they're going to perform, I think Davante Adams is going to want out. Mm-hmm. So they're saying, okay, these quarterbacks, I don't have confidence in these guys. We saw what happened to Davante when he is not being productive and the team is not winning. And if it happens 2 years in a row, I think he's going to want to ask for out.
So Davante Adams' agent, Kevin Chapman and Frank Bauer, said, this is on the trade talk speculation. This is baseless, unfounded speculation, and Davante is expected to be with the Raiders as there has been absolutely no trade talk, period. End quote. Which I'm not calling them liars. I believe them that there's been no trade talk as of this second. That doesn't mean there can't be in the future.
Well, that's right? What I'm saying. It's like
it can't be in the future.
I mean, in my scenario, there wouldn't be a reason for trade talk right now. They'd have to be on the field, and it'd have to be some sort of like sustained, lack of success.
Davante went on Shannon Sharpe's Club Shay Shay podcast. I don't know if I love or hate that name, but I'm definitely not going to forget it.
I mean, Shannon Sharpe, Shay Shay. I mean, I get it.
I get it. Doesn't make it good. Like, just because I get the joke doesn't mean it's a funny joke. I have to think about it. He was asked about this. Shannon Sharpe asked him about this whole Shay Shay asked him about this whole scenario, and he said, "Well, I'll answer it like this: if I'm going to be reunited with anybody, it would be Aaron Rodgers, the Jets, or relocated and be anywhere. It'd be with Aaron. But that's really not There's a lot of stuff going on last year in the media, and them asking, what are you going to do about this? Are you thinking about going here? And they talk about whatever without me even being involved in it. And it ended up getting all the way to the point where it got in the locker room. And people was thinking that I was the driving force. And I'm like, y'all don't understand, man. And I hate to say it like this because it makes me sound like I'm trying to put myself on a pedestal. But when you're a certain level of player, it don't have to come from you. And oftentimes it's not coming from you, which is true. I mean, that's fair. I mean, wild and reckless speculation about one of the best receivers in football isn't anything. It's right home. That's that's not an outrageous statement.
No, it's not. It's just, I get it. I understand it. And it everyone can be right. Mm-hmm. Because if Boomer signs and says, yeah, he's going to be in August or September, okay, I can see where, okay, you think there has to be some sort of, I mean, look, what if, because what we've been hearing from training camp, despite what Davante Adams has said, the quarterbacks didn't look good.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't looked good so far in practice. So if that doesn't change, I can see there is the possibility of a scenario going down where he would want to get out if he's like, dude, these guys do not look good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see these guys picking up the offense. I don't see it on the field. I don't see it in practice. I don't see it in the preseason games. Like, just get me out of here. I can see that. Is it probable? No, not at all. But if you're taking a look at it from what was he thinking, that's possible. As far as Arlovsky, I can see a deal being done with let's say the Jets. Let's just say, and it's a if when, if then we can go ahead and do it.
So what would a trade with the Jets look like? Because that seems to be if Davante Adams does, and again, it's a giant F, but let's just say hypothetically it happens. Jets seem like the biggest target. They're obviously all in. A receiver in his prime, towards the end of his prime, fits perfectly. They're one less year of Aaron Rodgers after him only playing 4 snaps last season. And if there's any kind of shallow part of their team, it would be their wide receiver core. Nothing right. It's a stacked team, stacked defense. Tackles aren't great, but pretty stacked team, and wide receiver could use a bump. And obviously we've seen what Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams can do together. And this is the biggest difference, though, between last season and this season. Davante's cap hit. Last season, it would have been almost a $40 million in dead cap the Raiders have to eat over the course of the rest of Davante's contract. Just an ungodly number. There was a reason why Davante was shutting down all trade conversations. He's just I know it's not going to happen. So I don't want to look like he's super smart. And he's also got a level of pride. He doesn't want to look like I'm going to ask for a trade and then not get it and look like a bitch. So I'm going to say, I'm here no matter what. I'm never leaving, because he understands math. He's a smart guy. So he's I'm not going anywhere, right? At this point, if the Raiders traded him or cut him or moved on from him, depending on the situation, it'd be $7.85 million in dead cap this season and $17.5 million in cap savings. Next season, the dead cap goes up to $15.7 million, but they'd save $28.4 million. That's according to I think it's Spot Track. So drastically different than last season. This is if it was you're getting some dead cap, but if we're not in a position where we need cap, you know what I mean? If you were trying to sign someone big, this would be a no-brainer move. Moving on, right? Because we need the cap space, right? Well, and he's really only got 1 year left of guaranteed money. Then it's kind of funny money after next season. So last year, the reason he never don't make no mistake about it. It wasn't because his loyalty. It wasn't because no one wanted him. It wasn't because the Jets didn't offer enough. The only reason that there was no trade talk whatsoever is because of the cap issue. That issue is now gone. That is no longer not the same. They are going to move on from him, but the major primary no discussion. Nothing you can be done about it. Situation from last season is now gone. So the door, you don't have to walk through it. It's not wide open, but it can be this season, unlike last season.
There is a very real scenario. And in most people's eyes, maybe not a lot of Raider fans' eyes, but most people in the know in the NFL, I believe most people believe this is the last season Davante Adams is going to be a Raider. There is little to zero confidence that these quarterbacks are going to play at the level that would satisfy Davante with team success and or personal success. And it's hard to say. It's anyone that's out there saying, "Oh, you watch, he's going to do this or he's going to do that." They're just talking out of their ass, because what they've shown us is I think number 26 and number 27 QBR quarterbacks in the league last season.
Mm.
So can there be big jump in production? Can this be a little bit more? Because I mean, this Luke Getsy offense is, for what we've seen in the past, like when the offense was a little bit more open with the Bears and with the Packers offense, it's much more similar to what Aidan O'Connell ran at Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
More deep shots, seams, stuff like that. Like it's not just a timing pattern, dink and dunk, and like you know, we'll probably discuss in a little bit. So there's more shots down the field, and maybe you know, it's just hard to say right now. I don't want to like kind of shy away from making a prediction or being strong on something, but it's who knows at this point. Both things happening are equally likely. Minshew comes in and he's the guy that couldn't get on the field, not the guy that kind of like rallied a pretty good Colts team already. Or he can fall flat on his face. And Aidan O'Connell can make a second-year leap, or he can be the guy that scored 0 points against the Vikings and didn't complete a pass the last 3 quarters against the Chiefs. It could be either one could happen.
So there's the speculation part of it, and that's certainly part of the equation. Is there going to be quarterback play that's going to keep Davante happy? But there is some complete non-speculation. We do have some exact answers on a couple things. So we know the Raiders cap situation with Davante, very, very doable. In fact, you may think good, right? With how much cap savings we're saving, right? Some may say that. On the Jets side, a little bit more complicated. This is the last year of guaranteed money on Davante's deal, this 2024-2025 season. So after that, it's all up in the air. He's going to get restructured. He's due like $35 million or something after that. Like that.
Yeah,
that
they'll spread it out.
Yeah, so it's like that shit ain't happening. So,
I mean, if they keep him, if he stays, they'll spread it out.
Yeah, but again, like 35 million, like there is going to be a giant restructuring, and there's no guaranteed money, so he's got no leverage really. So the other problem is the Jets cap situation. The Jets will be, if he gets traded, he'll be hit with the Jets with a $17.5 million cap hit, right? The Jets have $6.25 million in cap space right this second. So that's going to have to be a restructure right away. So you're going
no further than Aaron Rodgers,
right?
Look so no further.
So if you trade for him, the Raiders, remember last year, we're like, okay, if you're going to trade him, like you need to take care of this cap situation. Like you're going to have to find a way because like now it's your problem. Now the roles reversed a little bit. The Jets are going to be like, okay, well, you're in great cap situation with Davante. Now it's your turn to deal with it. So if I'm thinking of like a comp for Davante, I think like Stephon Diggs leaving the Bills as a trade. I feel like that's probably the closest comp. With only 1 year apart in age. Both awesome. I feel like that's a pretty safe comp. Mm-hmm. The Bills got a second, a fifth, and a sixth. But the Bills were the one in cap purgatory. So they were able to leverage maybe a little bit more. Going the other way, because I'm trying to think, what can we get for Davante Adams? If the Bills only got a second, a fifth, and a sixth, and that was to make up for cap situations, what could we realistically get for Davante from the Jets? It's not even that like they have a lot of draft picks either. Bad cap situation. A second? No more?
No, you're going to get more than that. So the good thing, the things that outweigh what the cap situation was with Buffalo and Houston is the fact that your star quarterback has worked with this receiver for years. You know it's going to work. You know that Davante Adams is not going to be. I mean, look, to be honest, the Texans are probably going to get the best version of Stephon Diggs this first season. So if they're going to want to use him to win games, they better do it this first year because that's when he's going to be on his best behavior. After that, who the hell knows? Probably going to go right back to the guy that the Vikings were just waiting to get rid of and the guy that the Bills were waiting to get rid of, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not going to be the case with Davante Adams. He is seen as more professional guy, better guy in the locker room overall, and the guy that he has the history with and the comfort level playing with just happens to be the guy that makes the most money in that team, who can alleviate and create the most cap space on the team. Mm-hmm. So I think that's they're in a good position to make it happen. So I think there will be a little bit more, because honestly,
more than what the Bills got for Stephon Diggs.
I would say probably so.
Or more than. Oh, really? Okay.
I would say like I mean,
it would have to be
a 2 and a 3, 2-2, something like that. Look, guys, I'm not trying to shit all over Davante Adams. I'm not. But first round picks for a 31-year-old receiver, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So,
well, and again, like it's not. It's less about, to me, I'm thinking like, I think Stephon and Davante are pretty similar. Like you look at their stat lines from last year, they're eerily similar, right? They're like, I think Stephon had like 4 more catches or something. He had like several hundred more yards, but again, Davante's had a longer track record.
He also had Josh Allen throwing him the ball.
Exactly, right? But to me, it's less that, and it's more like when you get into the nerdery with the nerds, the GMs, the calculators. They're like, okay, this is what we have to do cap wise. It's going to cost us this much. This is the compensation we're going to have to do. When that takes over, it says Davante's getting less. Now, once the like emotional influx comes in, Aaron Rodgers like comes out of his dark room, high on mushrooms, and is like, I want Davante no matter what. Then things change, right? And if this trade goes down, that's what we're hoping, because pure math, right? Like a Telesco type of trade, we would probably get less. When you start getting, like you mentioned, hey guys, it's going to work with Rodgers. Worked great for years. Aaron wants him, right? You get Davante texting Aaron, hey, go break into that GM room. Better yet, go straight to the owner. Say whatever it takes to get me, do it. Aaron will do it. Aaron's gotten his way over there for way worse players than Davante Adams.
Oh yeah,
that's what you'd want. Like you're right. Like the numbers say you'll get way less, but if you can pull, like, negotiations at this level can get yanked hard one way for like wild and invalid reasons. And that's what we got going for us if the trade goes through.
Yeah, it's a big if. And looking at the situation, and I'm hoping and praying that the lack of the shots downfield were more of a and I'm not talking about just about like deep to the sidelines. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about like corner routes. I'm talking about deep crosses. I'm talking about deep in cuts, stuff like that. Those types of patterns, they just weren't. He just wasn't throwing them. Even if guys were open, he just wasn't throwing those passes. Aidan O'Connell, I should mention, or pronouns, pal. And maybe hopefully that was just more of a product of the offense and not of Aidan O'Connell's ability to get the ball down there. But if he can show that he can get the ball down there more consistently, he definitely has the weapons around him to do it.
So it's time for us to have an uncomfortable conversation.
Even more uncomfortable than the one we just had?
It's time for us to have a very uncomfortable conversation.
All right.
And I feel like I'm about to give somebody like they're an alcoholic and we're going to give them an intervention. But it's a conversation that needs to be had, right? Anyone who goes to couples counseling says, like, communication is important. It might be uncomfortable. You might not like it. There might be tears and people might be mad at the time. But long term, it's a conversation that needs to be had. This conversation needs to be had. I'm not saying there's an answer to it right this second. I'm not saying the answer is good or bad. But it's a conversation that needs to be had with a wide receiver going into his 32nd year, going to be 32 this next upcoming season. Is Davante Adams in decline? And if so, how much? I've said multiple times in this show, Bill Barnwell is my favorite, most respected football mind at ESPN. Not that he's always right, but when he says something I listen, it makes me think. In one of his articles, he said, talking about like the Raiders off season and stuff like that. So this is out of context, but you get the point. It was overshadowed by everything else that went on with the Raiders last season, because obviously a lot of shit went down last year. But we might have seen Davante Adams begin his decline. The star wideout dropped off by nearly 400 yards from his first season with the Raiders in 2022, despite getting nearly as many targets over 17 games. The quarterback play didn't help, of course, but it's not as if he was going to be playing with Aaron Rodgers again in 2024. As I wrote about when Adams was traded, the track record of elite wideouts entering their 30s suggests teams can't count on them maintaining their all-pro level for long. He's still very good, but 2023 was his worst season in half a decade. Is Bill right on the money, way off, somewhere in between? What do you think, Soto?
I think he's on the money, and for this specific reason. I think Davante, at this point in his career, and he's still able to be that elite receiver, but he needs more at quarterback to be able to get him there than he did when he was younger. Mm-hmm. He needs more help to get there than he did a few years ago.
For many reasons, right? Like when he first started kicking it with Green Bay, like people didn't know what a weapon he was. He wasn't getting double teamed every play. Like he's going to be double teamed every play this season.
Yeah, he was double teamed for a solid 5 years with Green Bay every single play.
And then obviously the physical decline part of it. So this is what's great about Barnwell is he looks at huge swaths of metrics and data and the huge pages of history and says, these are the trends and here's what generally happens after, which is great, right? Not always like that's a big chunk of it. You've seen the stat how in the UFC, no fighter 35 years or older has won a championship fight at lightweight or lower. You seen that stat?
Yep.
That's fucking wild. 155, 145, 135, 125. No male UFC fighter has ever won a championship fight 35 years or older. You compare that to heavyweight, where Stipe Miocic was a champion in his 40s. Randy Couture was a champion in his 40s. Like Francis Ngannou, late 30s, best in the world. Why? Because it's almost two different sports. You can be super old as a heavyweight because you're not so reliant on speed, fast twitch. It's a little different sport, right? With wide receiver, like we talk about all the time, Davante Adams isn't a pure speedster, just completely relying on it. He isn't a pure, although he's very fast, he's not a pure athletic specimen. He is a specimen, but he's not just hanging on to that. He's not Megatron, right? He's savvy. He's a thinker. He's a route runner. So he will age better than most, right? He's not like a Jerry Rice was so effective, like well into his late 30s because he was none of those things. He was just, he outworked everybody, ran a better route than everybody, and never dropped the ball, right? Davante Adams has pieces of that. So whilst Bill Barnwell's right on the money in generally what happens, and all that data is correct, Davante does have some things going for him that would suggest he is not normal. He's not an every single all-pro wide receiver going into his year 32 season.
Yeah, I mean, I would be much more comfortable with the longevity of Davante Adams and his ability to still produce at an elite level had he once been a speed burner, but was still able to run routes. You've seen it look at Patrick Peterson. Once Patrick Peterson lost his speed, he's getting toasted left and right. And it doesn't have to be a big drop-off either. We're talking about like the elite of the elite athletes in the world. These guys are huge and fast and quick, and we've seen them testing their reaction time and stuff like that with Tyreek Hill and a Formula One driver. They tested their reaction speed, and it was like almost identical. So these guys are tuned to at their peak. Any drop off can be largely noticeable, especially when you don't have an elite trait at that level that normally would give people that defend you more trouble. I'm not saying that Davante Adams is not going to be an elite level receiver. I'm saying that the margin for error is a lot smaller, and then you take a look at the uncertainty at the person throwing him the ball, and that margin gets even tighter.
So here's a couple more stats for you. So Bill Barnwell gave us the giant the macro stats. Here's a giant swath of data, of his position. Here's generally what happens. Here's a bit more micro. Here are the stats of Davante Adams last season. His contested catch rate fell from 44.1% to 35.3%. His drop rate went from 5.7 to 8%. Yards after catch per reception went from 5 yards to 3.3 yards, and his yards per route fell off by half a yard, 2.45 to 1.97. So, yes, like when you have Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer throwing you the ball, things generally aren't going to go as well as, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, actual quarterbacks. But there's things he can't control, like your, contested rate. That's not, again, a strong arm does matter, right? Like if you're contested and the ball's, 10 miles an hour faster, getting to you faster, like that helps. Like these aren't completely independent of the quarterback, right? These aren't completely independent of the quarterback. But if there's any stats that's most on the receiver than anything, it's these three, right? Like, drop rate. Well, it's because he was getting hammered because balls are behind him a little bit, but still drop rate. Like you're a $30 million wide receiver. You need to catch everything that touches you, period. End of story. And that number went up, right? Negatively, the drop went higher, the wrong direction. So this is a unique position for the Raiders because there's 1 year left to guarantee money on his contract. It seems like there's a lot of data saying a decline could potentially be here. Like we could be living it, not coming, but here. And like we talked about, declines sometimes are steady, sometimes just completely fall off. Like I said, Davante is built most likely not to plummet because of his type of game, but you never know, right? When a fighter's chin goes, he can be the strong Tony Ferguson, like the toughest chin in the world. Justin Gaethje beat the shit out of him for 4.5 rounds, and he hasn't won a fight since. It was like 7 in a row. Right?
Hasn't even been in a fight since.
He won 1 round. This is how bad Michael Chandler is. That was the 1 round he won since then. He beat Michael Chandler in round 1, and then he got, remember the front kick that he ate?
Oh yeah,
knockout of the year, right? Like, here, you won 1 round, great.
It's very difficult, and I know we want to hang on to like our heroes and everything forever, but decline happens, and it's not a formula where, oh well, this person, his stats declined this much this season, so next season they're going to decline this much. It could be a lot bigger drop, or it could be, an improvement. And it's just like I said. I just think that Davante Adams is more dependent now on a quarterback than he ever was, and I don't think that we're going to see the same Davante that they saw in Green Bay.
I can guarantee you, pure skill wise, Davante Adams will be a top 10 wide receiver in the league next season. However, why does everyone think Bill Belichick, back when he was amazing, right? Not the last few years, but why did everyone think Bill Belichick was an amazing personnel director, amazing GM? His drafting was average or below average. His free agent signings was average to below average. But he was phenomenal at 2 things: getting compensatory picks and knowing his own team. Knowing when guys
who to let go.
Exactly. Like right when guys were too expensive, you're like, you're not worth it anymore. Yeah, you're starting to drop off a little bit. Right? Trent Brown. He let Trent Brown go. John Gruden paid him $1 bajillion, and then
And he got
signed
him
him
back
back
for
again for
cheap.
cheap, right? Like, how many times has he done that, right? Chandler Jones, right when he got really, really expensive. It's like, okay, and he was still good. Wasn't worth the money. That's what Belichick was amazing at. So even with that being said, I guarantee you, now maybe terrible quarterback play will make Davante not look great next season, but as a pure, skilled wide receiver, he will be top 10 in the league next season. But it still might be time to let him go because he's going to be demanding $30 million or whatever after that contract year. There's 1 year left on his guaranteed money. So if we're going to get anything for him, it's going to be now. And it looks like the decline is underway. You always want to buy low, sell high. And right now, the highest we could move on from Davante Adams and get something for him is this season. Or maybe earlier in the season, something like that, right? Like, the Jets have a receiver go down. They use Davante. The Niners have a receiver go down. They want Davante. Something, either now or something like that. You always want, when the demand is the highest and the perceived value is the highest, but it's lower than that. And it's going to hurt because Davante is going to go somewhere and do amazing. If we trade him to the Jets, he's going to do amazing. We're going to be like, oh, why can't we have that? Because we got 2 twos, like you said, hopefully. And he would have to restructure and get 26 mil and then a bunch of
we also don't have Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball here, too.
Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. So it's like, but, I would love to have Davante help usher whoever, the quarterback is. But again, you have to look at players as commodities. You have to look at them as tangible value assets. They're stocks. Are they going up or are they going down? And the best time to sell Davante is now because I think the league will overvalue him compared to the direction he's going and what his specific value is to the Raiders.
I really don't think his value would decrease if he went to the Jets.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, well,
what I'm saying is if he's going to the Jets, if we do it now, we do it at late in the season or even after the season, I don't think it's going to be too much difference.
The demand would be, my saying is like the demand would change if someone gets hurt. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like something like that, right? Like something happens where, some team that's like 6-2 with Super Bowl aspirations loses a wide receiver, right? That's when you want to move. Again, I keep using UFC examples. The richest fighters in the UFC are the ones that jump when the UFC's desperate because that's when you can demand money. Alex Pereira has fought, like he's main evented like 7 times in the last 11 months or so, some crazy number because he'll fight injured and he'll fight right away. So he's got the UFC with their pants down. They desperately need somebody. So he's going to be like, show me the money.
Yeah, pay me. I'll be there.
Nate Diaz became one of the top 5 richest UFC fighters ever because he fought Conor McGregor on like a week and a half's notice. Beat him, got the rematch, and then parlayed that, right? You strike when the iron's hot, and you catch people with their pants down.
The best time.
So, with that being said, obviously, the Jets seems like the biggest no-brainer of a trade partner. But another trade partner has emerged. By God, that's the 49ers music. Rumors floating around. Pretty Ricky on Twitter. I'm not overly familiar with him. I've seen him break some news here and there that's been correct. Pretty Ricky 213. Rumor. The Raiders are a team interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyuk knows Antonio Pierce from Arizona State. Here's the fun part. The Raiders would send Davante Adams to the Niners in any trade. Davante has no real money on his deal after this season. So, those of you not familiar with Aiyuk, he's last year of his deal coming up. Wants to be paid more. The Niners have crazy payroll with all their amazing skill players, some good defensive players, and he's demanded a trade since they're not dealing with him. Now, in fairness, I think it was the last 2 that a kicker, like a receiver or something, in the last few years that demanded a trade, and they didn't. The Niners just waited and re-signed him. So that's kind of been the Niners' MO. Really good front office. I hate to say it. Really good front office there in Santa Clara. They know how to handle their guys.
Yeah, for sure.
But rumor, the Raiders are interested in trading for Aiyuk, and they'd do a swap with probably there'd have to be some compensation in between. But Davante Adams, 31-year-old for Brandon Aiyuk, I think he's 26. It makes a lot of sense. The Niners are a Super Bowl contender. They're in win now mode while Brock Purdy is still in his rookie contract. We're hopeful the Raiders are going to play fantastic, but I think it's pretty safe to say that we're leaning more into the, second, third year of Antonio Pierce's run and maybe not so much this season. Tell me it makes no sense, Soto.
No, I mean, a lot of things have to happen. A lot of things have to fall into place for that to happen. And this is why these conversations are tricky, because is it likely to happen? No, it's not likely to happen. What we're discussing are the ifs. What has to happen for this to happen, right? What are the things that have to fall into place for this to happen? And a lot of the listeners will think like, oh, these guys are dumb. That's never going to happen. Well, I mean, we're not saying it's going to happen. We're saying if it is to happen, these things have to happen first.
Here's a report, and here's our analysis of it.
Yeah, here's our analysis of it. We're not saying it's going to happen. We're not saying it's not going to happen. Actually, I'm saying it's extremely unlikely that it happens. Because he's going to want to get paid big money. And, is that what you want to hang your hat on offensively? Brandon Aiyuk, a guy who wasn't even a number one receiver on his own team.
Well, I would sign him. I'd sign him to a 4-year deal with you'd spread it out. He's young enough where it's like,
yeah, but he was offered $26 million a year and he turned it down.
Yeah,
he's going to want 28, 30 on a guy when he was the number one target. When Debo went down last year, they didn't win a game, and their offense was stagnant when they lost those games. So it wasn't like Aiyuk picked up the slack, right? Now, granted, Debo and Aiyuk are completely different receivers. They do completely different things, and the offense did have to change in order for the Niners to take advantage of what Aiyuk does better, and they're just not built that way. They're built more for the Swiss Army knife that is Debo Samuel. Oh, you missed him.
I saw him. I saw a tail.
Freaking jerk. So there's that. But ultimately, we're gonna have to trade a guy and pay him $30 million a year. A guy that's never been a number one receiver. That's kind of tough.
I think also, I think it makes more sense for the Niners and Davante than the Raiders, right? So maybe the Niners have to sweeten the pot a little bit, something like that, to make it worth it. I don't know, but that's the report. Raiders are a team interested in trading for Aiyuk. Also, you got to add the AP factor, right? Is he gonna push for Aiyuk because of their time at ASU together? Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. Well, speaking of wild wide receivers, Antonio Brown is trending again.
Jesus.
You never know why, right? I see he's trending, and I'm like, ooh, do I Google it? Am I going to see a dick pic? Is it going to be a bunch of swear words?
Who knows, dude? Who the freak knows?
Combination of the two. So he went on Tyreek Hill's podcast. And this is what he said about his time with the Raiders. I don't even consider him a Raider because he never actually played a game, put on shoulder pads, or even
you gotta play a game.
Really practice. Like he kind of sort of practiced. Like he custed a GM.
Once, remember he had that foot thing, almost melted his feet off.
Yeah, he's not. I don't really count him as a Raider. But he said, Mark Davis stood up on a limb for me. As an honorable man, I told him, yo, I don't want to be a Raider. Save him his money. I handle business respectably. It saved him money. If I get on the roster the first opening day of the game, he's going to owe me $30 million. He made a deal to let me go, but no one ever knew that. He reiterated because it's Tyreek Hill's like, what? This doesn't make any sense. You give up 30 mil? AB says, so I got to the Raiders and I'm like, yo, Mark, I love everything about it here. I love money, but it's not championship culture. It's not the environment I want to be in. I love you. I appreciate the 30 mil, but I already got 30. Not to be arrogant, but I got it. I don't need to hustle you. So I say this all the time. Mike Florio, he's a terrible hot taker, terrible analyst, very uncreative. But when it comes to, he's a lawyer. So when it comes to like contract stuff, he's great. He is really, really good. I do read all of his like contract and, like some cap stuff he's good at, like the nerd stuff he's great at.
Mm-hmm.
So he put up a few things that are just funny with how AB revised history. First, the Raiders had voided the guarantees before the issue of cutting Brown even came up. The $30 million was gone. It was already gone. It wasn't like he had a chance to give it up or take it. It wasn't his choice. Second, as to the idea that the Raiders would have owed Brown his full salary if he was on the Week 1 active roster, the Raiders also had informed him that he had waived his right to termination pay. That pay was already gone. Third, if Brown meant he was simply giving up his right to pursue payments the Raiders had already taken from him in exchange for release, Brown had still filed a grievance against the Raiders to try to get the $30 million. So it's like, AB, there's receipts, man.
He's like, just kidding. I really want the money.
Yeah. I really want that money that I said I didn't want, that I never had access to, that I had already waived. But I want it again. I'm going to file a grievance. Even though I don't need it, I already got 30.
This is totally like somebody thinking they're a lot smarter than they are and trying to outsmart the system. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, yeah, I'll agree to all this stuff if you release me. Okay, I'm released. Okay, I want that money back. That was my like that was his plan all along, to file a grievance and get his money, and it wasn't going to work. And now he's just talking out of his ass.
Imagine trying to like sell a used car to Antonio Brown or something. Like, what a fucking nightmare. That would be like, and also this is the dude who like he's being sued for millions because he didn't pay like a contractor like 30 grand. Like, he's the dude that's literally like, I'm going to light these hundreds on fire so I can steal a $1 bill out of your pocket.
Didn't rich people learn anything from Tommy Lee?
Don't put your sex tape in a safe and then
don't yell at the your workers and they won't come back and try to steal your shit.
Yeah. Although I'm glad that if anyone's going to stiff him, it was Tommy Lee. He's going to get that wonderful, beautiful piece of art that was Pamela and Tommy. She was kind of a shitty blowjob giver, I think. It was just
one. She's freaking hot, bro. Why does she have to be good at it?
I'll tell you this much, dude. You show me the hottest woman in the world, and I will show you a dude who's probably tired of banging her.
That's like, the saying.
You can be super, super hot, but something's got to keep you like you will get over it at some. You give me the best pizza on. What's the best pizza you've ever had, Soto? Best pizza.
Oh, this spot in San Pedro called Buratino's. Big up to Buratino's.
Buratino's in San Pedro. Okay, is it deep dish, New York style?
No, it's the thin crust brick oven, nice and crispy. I love it.
Okay, nice and crispy. It's like a thin. Is there like the works? Just a regular pepperoni?
They have a
give me a picture here.
They have a pizza called the 120. It's an extra large pizza and it has 120 pieces of pepperoni on it.
Love it.
It's absolutely amazing. You can get it with regular sauce or you can get it with their black garlic sauce, which is really good.
Black garlic sauce? I'm so intrigued.
It's really good. We'll go. It's freaking delicious. It's my favorite place for pizza.
We got to get him to change it to the silver and black garlic sauce.
Well, that's when you put the ranch or the blue cheese on there.
There you go. Not silver and black. Okay, so imagine that that sounds incredible. That amazing pizza, right? If you had it every single night, nothing but that pizza.
For how long?
Give it 2 weeks. You'll get over it in 2 weeks.
I don't know, man. I'm a guy. I eat the same thing every day. But yeah,
then you move on to that like $5. You know what I mean? You move on to that $5 rotisserie chicken you get at Costco. You know, you start craving
Sam's Club, baby. It's good. That's $5. Oof. Right? That rotisserie is good.
Happy trails, happy retirement to Jalen Richard. You know how much I really enjoyed watching him play. I never once mispronounced his name. That's how much I like this guy.
And that's
saying a lot.
Saying a ton.
Especially because his last name is Richard, but he makes us all say Richard. Like we're eating caviar and wearing monocles because we're about to go meet the queen, right? He retired. He was obviously with the Raiders 6 seasons, five or six seasons. Undrafted free agent and was a damn good contributor for someone who's an undrafted free agent. He was our third down back for good 3-4 seasons. Was it Adam Hill or Vic Tafer who said like he was the guy they always went to in the locker room?
Adam Hill.
It was Hill. He was just like, he was willing to talk. Like he was a happy, jovial. He's like, what do you want to know? Yeah, like a lot of their scoops, a lot of their insight came from Richard. And not like, oh, I'm betraying the locker room. It's just kind of like, oh, here's some cool things that are going on. Here's a funny story about this guy. Like he was that guy, right? Just an undrafted free agent. You love seeing when those guys can put together a 6-year career and do like, make a living.
Dude, they just want to hit that 5. They want to hit that 5th year so they can get their pension. They can get their medical and everything done for life.
He announced Wednesday morning that he's retiring. He wants to coach.
Good for him, man. Good for him.
That's you always talk about. So I had I can't believe I forgot his name. I keep using so many fighter examples today, but I had a fighter on my show about a month ago, and he went like 2-5 in the UFC. You know
Paul Varlins.
No, no. He'd just been recently.
Marco Ruas.
Recently been cut. Not a 60-year-old.
It's gonna
kill me. It's gonna kill me. When I'm done talking, I'm gonna Google him because I forgot his name. But anyway, he was telling the story, and you're like, all right, 2-5. You made like maybe 6 figures total in the entire. Was that really that great? And he said, dude, I came from nothing, no parents, dog shit, living. I was living on the mats. Now I own 12 acres. I own a moving company. I get to do charity work in my neighborhood. I'm like the town hero. Like I came from this tiny town in South Carolina where no one has anything going for them. I went out, came back. Now I'm like mayor of this city. Like success is constantly moving, right?
Relative.
It's very relative. It's all dependent on what, so much. Like that's what you look at Jalen Richard. He's like, all right, Mississippi State, undrafted free agent. He got 5 years in the league, respected. Once a Raider, always a Raider. He can stroll into Allegiant Stadium anytime he wants to be treated like a king. He'll get a coaching gig somewhere. That just makes me
for sure, man.
Makes me happy, man.
It's good. It always makes me feel like I was just talking about this earlier today. 2 things get me like really like excited for other people. It's promotions and retirement. Like they did their time. They put their time in. They worked hard for all that time, whether you retire after 6 years or you retire after 60 years. You put your time in and they're like, okay, I want to move on to the next stage in my life. I think that's very exciting. I think it's something that should be celebrated. And, hopefully, I don't know that Jalen Richard had any serious injury. So he's still young, and I think he's just 29-ish, right? 29?
30. Yeah,
30. So he's still young. He's relatively healthy, and he's stepping into the next stage of his career. And I think that's pretty great, man. That's pretty great for him to be able to do that on his terms, on his timeline. And man, I wish him nothing but success.
It is like the best route for longevity to be the third down back, because you're just like, okay, you're not in between the tackles grinding every time. How many snaps are you getting in a game? 15, maybe.
No, dude, you're getting like not that many. And he wasn't even the full-time third down back.
Yeah,
Josh Jacobs was in there a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think he played some special teams too, so there's a little bit more
special
snaps.
teams. Yeah.
So it was a little bit more snaps, but like if you want longevity,
good for him, man. Good for him.
Happy for him. Ready to do some what up windbags?
You know I am.
Enamel red. This is last week we were talking about that.
Enamel red, fucking idiot.
Enamel red. Enamel
red.
Enamel, like your teeth enamel. That's not how you spell it.
I think so.
That's not how you spell
enamel red. Yeah, and that's what it means.
That's not how you spell enamel.
Are you sure?
No. I'm definitely not sure. I'm 100% not sure. Let me see. An opaque or semi-transparent glass.
No, it actually is
applied to metallic or other hard surfaces.
That's exactly what it is.
Enamel red.
What did you say?
I spelt it out the first like 3 letters and then
Enamel red.
Red. Anal red.
Ename L red.
Stupid name, regardless. Poll question should be better fighters, soccer players or NBA basketball players? The question should be worse fighters. So we're talking about how in the brawl in South Carolina for the Copa, is it Argentina and Uruguay?
And Uruguay, yeah. No, I think it was Colombia and Uruguay.
Colombia and Uruguay. There was like a brawl and nobody got hurt. It was like a 30-on-30 brawl. And everyone just walked away.
Let me stop you right there. Hang on a second. First off, those weren't the soccer players that were fighting, number one.
Yes, they were. The soccer players went. That's why it was such a big deal. The soccer players went into the stands because they thought that their family was
fighting. They were just kind of breaking stuff up. The last time I saw something, an NBA player do something like semi-cool fight-wise was the Malice from the Palace.
In fairness, Ron Artest isn't your run-of-the-mill basketball player.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm being very generous with giving them that because Ron Artest is basically a street thug playing with a basketball uniform on. He's hilarious. Don't get me wrong. He's freaking hilarious. Whenever I see an interview with him on there, I have to watch it. But I mean, if you have to even like take a pause to think, you've never seen like a Mexican Sunday soccer league happen. Because those are some fights. They are like legit fights happening in there.
There is nothing less dangerous than a group of unarmed soccer players. Nothing on earth is less dangerous.
I don't know, man. I don't think you've seen some of these Sunday league fights.
The dudes in the stands that are hammered and that's all they do, different story. The actual soccer players, if they're unarmed, there's nothing less dangerous.
If they're professional soccer players, I get it. They're kind of Sallies in that way where they flop all the time. They get a bad rap. But I'm talking about like guys that work construction, guys that work at Home Depot,
very different story.
Bus boys, those guys playing on Sundays, those guys could scrap.
Very different story. Derek Brightony. I lived with an orange cat that terrorized me until I got a small arsenal of squirt guns. After a week of shootouts, I only had to flash it at the cat and he would quit his shit. I renamed him Malachi after the redheaded kid in Children of the Corn.
Good one.
Can we get you a squirt gun?
I'm not going to use a squirt gun. I'm not going to do it. Because I'm not going to traumatize these guys.
They need to be traumatized. That's why they're running this shit.
They're fine.
They're spoiled.
They are spoiled, but they're mine.
All right. Andrew Evanstar. This is the most entertaining Raiders podcast. Thank you, Andrew. I didn't just put this on here because I love being verbally jerked off by you guys. But when we started doing this, we're like, all right, do we want to be like really good tape study guys? Do we want to be news breakers? Like we're just Raider fans that wanted to like talk Raiders in the way that we wanted to do it. And I thought like, let's just be fun. Let's just be a fun. There's a lot of great news breakers like Sanjeet. He's first to the,
dude, Sanjeet
first
is
on there with the news.
Dude.
There's incredible film guy, like the Tape Don't Lie guys you've had on here.
Guys.
Fantastic. Obviously, there's all the beat writers. There's great conversationalists. Like, how about we just be a really fun Raiders show? You're going to learn some stuff. You're going to get some insight. We sort of kind of have broken news here and there.
Yeah, Graphic does a good job about breaking the news and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of people out there, man. There's a lot of guys out there. And I think we've said it from the very beginning multiple times. And I think we kind of like, once it was said the first time, I think we both kind of got it, is we just want to be the guy next to you sitting in the bar, just talking football and talking shit and just, shooting the shit.
We want to be the group of Raiders fans at the corner of the bar that you look over and you're like, they're having the time of their life. I want to go over there and like join. Like that's what we want to do.
You couldn't wait 5 minutes?
And again, you're going to learn some stuff. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry. But you're going to have a good time. So, yeah, that was our goal. Thank you very much, Andrew. We appreciate it.
You couldn't wait 5 minutes.
You couldn't wait 5 minutes. I am going to get a squirt gun and give it to you. Load it, cock it, and dare you to use it.
I would never.
See if you will. All right. Well, next time we chat with y'all, we'll have some cleats to the turf. conversations to have. That's how close we're getting.
I mean,
Right down the
we're going to
street,
get more
Costa Mesa.
content coming up, guys. We're going to have the shows. We're going to have the post-game shows. We're going to have more breaking news. It's going to be crazy.
Until then, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.